I'll try to be brief because I know I think a lot of the real meat of the discussion is in the discussion that we have with the audience, with the questions that are raised there. तो मैं बड़ा I've been grappling with this topic since October 7th and onwards, and giving talks here and there. And as a lawyer, as an international lawyer, it's becoming very difficult for me to really understand, really put labels on what's happening, right? और वकील का जो सबसे अहम काम है is that law is definite, law is concrete, law is clear, or is supposed to be at least clear and certain, and you are to apply that to human interaction, which is by its very nature abstract. It is difficult to conceptualize, right? Infinite variety होती है. So this unenviable task that a lawyer, a judge has, this is what we do. You come into some situations where you have law, but the human conduct is so vastly beyond that definition of law that the law seems inadequate. The law seems a failure, and we really are testing the limits of the law. अब अगर हम post World War II के या World War II के जो atrocities थी, या the killing fields in Cambodia जो Hutus ने रवांडा में Tutsis के साथ किया, या जो आज गाजा में हो रहा है, if we try to simply label it as war crimes or as genocide, that does not seem to be an adequate enough definition. Nor is the legal punishment for anyone who has committed this adequate. How do you punish Netanyahu for the 40 to 70,000 people that he has murdered, for just that one person that he burnt alive the other day? How do you punish him for that? Right? So ये तो law की limitation आ गई. At times, and this is something that I've been struggling with, I have run out of the words, simply the language, to describe Israel and what it's been doing. बड़ी मुश्किलों से I've come up with or found some basic definition that I feel I can apply in this. It's a Latin term. It's called hostis humani generis. और इसकी जो rough translation है is enemy of mankind, and enemy of the human race itself, right? And this is the term that, in a sense, I feel both legally, इसके legal connotations भी हैं, it's used in a particular context, and I'll explain that. Legally तो है, but इसकी जो rhetorical और जो symbolic value है, I think that is far higher, right? Israel today is not just a rogue state. The word rogue again fails here. Okay? Rogue state की भी कोई basic कोई वो होती है. Currently, North Korea and Iran are considered rogue states. They have far more rules and red lines than what Israel has demonstrated. Right? So rogue state is not the term here. Enemy of mankind is the term that you would use for the Israeli government at this time. At least this is what I feel. Because, and I'll explain this in some, very briefly, enemy of mankind जो hostis humani generis है, इसकी legal value है. Back in the day, ये admiralty law, naval law में जो rules थे is, a state could only exercise its jurisdiction over its territory. तो high seas पे जो piracy होती थी, who would exercise jurisdiction there? Right? So they came up with this concept that any state can try a pirate. Any state can know, and the concept was that a pirate is hostis humani generis. He is an enemy of mankind, of all mankind, and therefore they can try them. Right? अब ये हो गया कि this concept has expanded. People who are committing crimes which are crimes against humanity itself, not just crimes against humanity, but crimes against mankind. So things like genocide, things like war crimes, things like crimes against humanity specifically, these would be, triable by basically any state. और इसका जो concept अब derive हुआ है, modern definition is universal jurisdiction. और कुछ ममालिक हैं जहाँ पे universal jurisdiction apply की जाती है. For example, Germany में, Argentina में, UK में भी if the Attorney General gives authorization. France में, Belgium में, आपने देखा होगा General Pinochet, for crimes he committed in Chile, he was tried in Europe. In a number of countries, even in the UK, there was a case there. So this is the principle of universal jurisdiction that applies there. It emanates from this enemy of mankind definition. So, just, moving on, why do I consider Israel to be, an enemy of mankind? We've seen everything in front of us on TV, the wonderful presentation that Waleed gave, Khurram Saab and Muhammad Ali Saab. They've both given very, detailed explanations there. But, just from a legal perspective, I wanted to discuss a few points. सबसे पहले जो हमारा international order है, इसकी एक बड़ी essential value is secularism, right? I'm not a big proponent of secularism like that, but so that different states didn't get into that problem that my God is better than your God, and so that we could have international relations, एक understanding आ गई कि हम जो है we'll keep religion out of it, and at a secular level we will engage in international relations, in develop international law based on that, on humanistic principles, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is what the entire world functions under. Whether you're Saudi Arabia, whether you're Pakistan, whether you are, India or any other country, the Vatican itself operates under these principles, secular principles. The only nation in the world that requires us to suspend this application is Israel, where they're saying that because God gave us this land, right, not only is our God better than yours, but we don't apply even your fundamental international legal framework to this particular situation. अब इसमें clash कहाँ आता है? Israeli fanatical, ideology on one hand, and then international law on the other. For example, Judea and Samaria is the name they give to the West Bank. That is not occupied according to Israel. I mean, even though the courts applied that way, but annexations are completely justified. Settlements are completely justified because this was God-given land. Gaza, again, is God-given land for this, right? So this becomes a huge problem that we have. We cannot have an international order if this enemy of mankind exists and insists upon its, insistence upon its requirement to have religion brought into this particular debate, right? So the second thing is Israel's rejection of international law. And I don't know how many examples we need any further, but sabse pehle, the rules of non-intervention are rejected by Israel. The rules of non-acquisition of territory through conquest, your settlements, and these are all acquired through conquest. We have UN Charter Article 2.4, which prohibits any such things. After the UN Charter came in, the good old days jahan pe you would capture land, put your flag there, and it was yours forever. That can't happen anymore. So any occupation is by definition temporary in nature. And at some point it has to be given back to the lawful sovereign. Israel denies the respect for territorial integrity of all its neighbors, not just Palestine. It violates the rules of regarding self-determination, the laws of self-determination. It denies and has got all its allies involved in this, which, it denies, the occupied people having a right of resistance. And it has labeled any resistance force as a terrorist organization and had its allies done this, right? So when the world says, oh, Hamas is a terrorist organization, it is not a terrorist organization in Pakistan. It is only a terrorist organization in the US and in some European countries, right, and by Israel. So we should be very clear that in Pakistan, Hamas is not a terrorist organization, neither is Hezbollah. And we should not be falling into that trap again and again and again. I just wanted to quickly, कि ये जो right of resistance है, there's UN General Assembly Resolution 37/43 of 1982, which reaffirms the inalienable right of the Namibian people, the Palestinian people, and all peoples under foreign and colonial domination to self-determination, national independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and sovereignty. और इससे पहले legitimacy of the struggles of peoples for independence, by all available means, including armed struggle. Right? So armed struggle, the use of violence in the pursuit of right of self-determination is completely justified. And this is mentioned here. This is also something that Israel, by its very definition, has to, and by its existence, has to deny. Basic rules protecting human rights. And we feel that हम 2024 में बैठे हैं, we can't have concepts like apartheid ever again. But we see Israel doing this again and again and again. And what is apartheid? Apartheid की legal definition जो है is legalized racial segregation. जहाँ पे you have laws in place that are passed by your parliament that say, these people will walk on this side of the road and these people will have access to these services. Or these people will not be allowed to go to these particular schools, but these guys can get whatever they want. And that is exactly what we see here. And it's not me saying this, it's every single human rights organization in the world, including Israeli human rights organizations, that have said this. So, ये एक issue. दूसरा ये है, the next is rejection of global institutions. So whether it is the International Court of Justice, जहाँ पे case आ गया है, that is anti-Semitic. Whether it is the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, the prosecutor, he is anti-Semitic. Whether it is the UN General Assembly that passed resolutions against Israel again and again and again, they're anti-Semitic. Basically, the whole world and their representatives are anti-Semitic. UN organs such as the WHO, UNRWA, whose personnel have been deliberately targeted. Latest count is that 230 UN personnel, employees of the United Nations, have been killed by Israel. This is the most in any conflict historically. The UN Secretary General is now persona non grata. Ambassador Saab would know persona non grata is not taken lightly. So imagine that the entire UN itself. UNIFIL is deliberately targeted. These are soldiers of other sovereign countries, Ireland, Italy, Ghana, etc., who are deliberately being targeted. And you have to give them credit that they haven't withdrawn from their positions. So attacks on all their neighbors, these are just some of the things there. जो सबसे बड़ी इसमें, I think the casualty that we've seen from Israel is rejection of the principles and standards of IHL, International Humanitarian Law, the law of armed conflict. There's certain basic principles, the most foundational principles of IHL they don't follow. So एक मैं आपको बता, distinction. Distinction का जो, the meaning of distinction is that every military is under an obligation to distinguish between civilians and soldiers. It's as simple as that, right? And the converse was that soldiers will wear uniforms. Israel here does not distinguish that at all. Israel has these wonderful legalistic definitions that it imposes, where it says that every male between this age and this age is targetable. Or that if we give an evacuation order in a location, that anyone who remains there is targetable. We see that Israel has tried to, even because this burden may become difficult for individuals, it has outsourced the targeting decision to artificial intelligence. So they've had programs like Gospel. Currently, the one that's applied is Lavender. Lavender comes up, just lists names. उसमें intel जाता है, उसमें जो registry है where everybody lives, that goes in and it just comes up with targets who fit, a general signature of somebody who might be in Hamas. Comes up with names, and the human in this process looks at the piece of paper with the name on it for a maximum of around 20 seconds. This is what Israeli authorities are saying. And based on that determination gives the kill order, right? So numerous people have been killed simply because their name was similar to a Hamas commander, and that is considered a justifiable killing. This is collateral damage, kabhi hota hai, right? In these things. So that is what Lavender is. Secondly, I think the cruelly named program that they use is Where's Dad? Where's Dad is a program that it is often more difficult to kill a Hamas fighter in the battlefield. Therefore, they wait for this individual to return home when he is with his family, and then they target the family, the entire family. That's why 902 entire generations, family, A to Z families have been wiped off the Gaza register, right? Because these are tactics that are used in war. These aren't just, galti se ho gaya. This is deliberate policy, a pattern of state policy that is, happening here. It's fed into the software. This is other evidence aapke paas kya hoga, right? So the next principle, basic principle, is proportionality. Proportionality की जो definition है, वो I've written it down here so I don't, give you a different one. That whenever you target something, first of all, it has to be a military target. Civilian targets are off limits by definition, right? You can only target something which gives you military value. उस चीज़ में भी अगर उसके नज़दीक there are civilians, so you have to do a balancing act. You have to see whether the direct and concrete military advantage you get from attacking, say, this tank or this fighter outweighs any civilian harm. Now, what does this mean? There is a building, it has 20 fighters in it, the enemy, और उसके साथ 2 civilians हैं. अब 20 fighters मारने के लिए 2 civilians, if I was a commander, I'd say, that's justified. But what if you have something else? What if you have 100 civilians around here and 1 commander inside? That's exactly what Israel did in Jabalia. It's exactly, in fact, worse what it did when it was rescuing 2 of the hostages or 3 of the hostages. इसके लिए एक term होती है, it's called, the US came up with this term, it's called non-combatant casualty cutoff value, NCCV, where basically they determine how many civilians are we willing to kill for this particular target. And at the height of its violence in Afghanistan and Iraq, this was not more than 10 to 15 civilians for one very high level target. In Israel, we're seeing this to be extremely high, where they're willing to kill more than 100 people for a single target. Multiple times, not in just particular cases, but time and time again. So the NCCV is incredibly high. Secondly, there's another very interesting principle. If there is a building, and from one window you see a sniper, this is a multi-story building, 20-story building, it's generally a civilian building, people live there, but from one window there's a sniper. Every other country in the world would shoot at that particular window and destroy perhaps that apartment, right? Through whatever weaponry it had. Israel is the only country in the world that says the entire building becomes a target. Jitne bhi usme units ho. And that's why if you're wondering why the destruction that you're seeing is taking place, is because these legal principles are used in practice now, on the ground. And that is really what is causing much of these things. So there is method to their madness, right? And it's a cruel, inhuman method, but it is there, and that's why you are seeing these things. These aren't mistakes that are happening, right? That's what these did. फिर आपका military necessity आ जाती है, where it's again you only target something जिसकी military की value हो आपको. Israel में what we're seeing is collective punishment, where they are deliberately targeting things that could either be dual use or are purely civilian, so they punish the people and raise the cost for the people ever supporting Hamas in the future. We've seen that numerous buildings have been destroyed. What you're seeing in Gaza is not how urban warfare is fought, right? Anywhere in the world, there's no other army that fights like this, that let's flatten the place and then see if anybody survives, and then we'll take those out as well. Why are children being shot by snipers if that's not collective punishment, right? One reason that we heard is that snipers, and no offense to snipers, but one of the more cowardly elements there is that children, when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, they're slower than their older counterparts who are throwing stones. So they're easier to target. The sniper gets more time to target them, right? And that's what you're seeing in numerous. We just had 46 or 64 doctors in the U.S. who wrote to the president and said that this is what we've seen, multiple bullet wounds there. And then starvation. Again, starvation is not to starve out the Hamas people, it's to punish the people there themselves. And why does this happen? This happens because Israel has been allowed impunity. And I just wanted to give you a quick statistic. The US used its first Security Council veto in 1970, right? And since then, it has had about 86 vetoes in the UN Security Council. Out of those 86 vetoes on all global affairs, right, it's used those 86. To protect Israel, 45 of those vetoes have been to protect Israel. More than half, more than 50% of all vetoes the US has used has been to protect Israel in some shape or form. The second country is USSR, Russia, who has since 1970 used a total of 49 vetoes. So all the vetoes that Russia has used, the US has just used those to protect Israel. That's what we're seeing internationally. I'm not going to take more time because I know we'll hopefully have some discussion. But I hope I've justified my case that when I refer to it as the enemy of mankind, I'm talking about the global institutions that we need to keep a secure and stable global world order. We often get bogged down in the military and the armed response to these issues, but it's really the foundational threat that Israel is to the global order. And the final point, this is the actual final point, sir. The final point I have is that whether we like it or not, when the West would wag their finger at us कि human rights violations हो रही हैं और पूरी दुनिया उसमें कुछ benefit भी था. At least human rights was discussed, right? At least there was some woe and there was. Now there is simply no standing left for the West to talk to anyone about any human rights. So the biggest casualty in this ultimate thing is the concept of human rights or the concept of protecting the individual. And that, I think, ultimately is the greatest loss that we're going to have. If Israel continues the way it does, we cannot have human rights. And we cannot have an international order that functions equally for everyone. Thank you very much.